I invite you to sit comfortably with your back straight but relaxed. Feel the support of the chair behind you. Close your eyes and take a slow, deep breath. Feel the air and life force moving in you as your ribs expand. Imagine air and light moving into your lungs, filling and flowing throughout your entire body. Exhale slowly and deliberately, as if you are a balloon gently deflating. Inhale again, bringing fresh life force, oxygen, and energy into your system. Exhale slowly and deliberately, inviting the presence. God is with you in this moment, regardless of what is happening around you. It may appear that things in the world are not well and chaotic. It may seem that things are upside down in your life. And yet, in this moment, as you consciously invite the divine life force of the universe in through your breath, you are safe. Stand resolute in the eye of the storm with God and know all is well. In this sacred moment, you are consciously inviting life in and releasing anything that does not serve. You are declaring that you are worthy of what nourishes you and willing to release anything that is not. You are standing in harmony with the eternal ebb and flow of the energies in the world. When you see something in your life or your world that disturbs you, pause and breathe. Breathe in and say, I exist. Breathe out and say, in love. Breathe in and say, I am one. Breathe out and say, with love. Breathe in and say, I will live. Breathe out and say, in love. Feel peace flowing through you. Feel the love of the divine coursing through your mind, body, and soul. Know you are never alone. You are never without protection. No matter what you see in the world, in your life, this love, this peace, this safety, and security are yours. Take this into the silence as we integrate these higher truths. When you feel complete, gently come back into the room and be fully present in your body. You feel awake, alert, and energized. Amen.
Look inside and you will find that you are all you need. Look inside and you will find that you are all you need. The life that is within you is the life of God, expressing, ever pressing into view. truth and light and joy and love, the power flows, creating, ever making all things new, creating, ever making all things new. Look inside and you will find that you are all you need. Look inside and you will find that you are all you need. The mind that is within you is the mind of God. Presence of the all-indwelling love. The universal principle of power and truth abides within you, gentle as the dove. Abides within you, gentle as a dove. Look inside and you will find that you are all you need. Look inside and you will find that you are all you need. The love that is within you is the love of God, enshrined within the center of your heart, radiating peace and grace and unity, and a love the world will never pull apart, and a love the world never will pull apart. Look inside and you will find that you are all you need. Look inside and you will find that you are all you need. Look inside and you will find that you are all you need. Look inside and you will find that you are all you need.
Good morning, all. I feel that I must give you a progress report on my portfolio since I asked y'all to look for it. It was after the 11 o'clock service, we were having an informational meeting, and Candy came to me and said, here's a phone number of a guy who says he found your portfolio. Said his name was Al. I said, Al was in the service? She said, call him. So I called Al, and I said, I understand you got my portfolio. Thank you so much. He said, oh, yeah. I said, I found it in the middle of the road near the casino. I said, Yeah, he said, I found it there. And I tell you the truth, guys, if you had held a gun to my head, I would have swore I didn't put that thing on top of my car. But I did. And somebody recommended to me, David Lineweber said, did you look real good in your car? I said, the problem is I didn't look real good on my car. And so therein lies, the folly of it all. But interesting, I said, Al, thank you so much. Where are you at? I'll come get it. He said, I'm in Baghdad. I said, my portfolio's in Iraq? He said, no, Baghdad, Arizona. I said, oh, of course it is. He said, it's kind of a long drive. I'm going to be back here Friday. If you don't mind waiting, I'll just bring it to you. I said, oh, thank you, Al. So I'm so thankful for Al, his honesty. The contents were all secure. Sadly, the portfolio didn't fare so well. It flew off my car, probably got run over a few times. So sadly, it's gone. But everything within, all the cards and stuff that I need for my life was in there, so I'm so thankful to Al. And I must say, and understandably, Al knows way more about me than I'll never know about Al, because he had to find out who it belonged to. And so I met Al and his little dog, and I said, man, you don't know how much I appreciate this. Let me take you out to lunch, show my appreciation. He said, I'm good. I said, well, you ever get a mood for lunch? You holler at me, you got it. So they're a good report. Mixed. I know the old one's gone, but I got a new one coming. But everything's cool there. And thank you again for helping me look nonetheless. I heard about a guy named Alec Holden from the UK. On April 24th, 1997, Alec Holden turned 90. On that day, he placed the equivalent of a $200 bet in British pounds that he would live to be 100. A betting company had placed Holden's odds at 250 to 1. Not good odds. So on April 24, 2007, when he turned 100, he collected on his bet the equivalent of $50,000 in British pounds. Not bad. Said he worked as a teacher and carpenter most of his life, and he credited porridge as his number one source of survival. He also confessed that in the days leading up to the big payoff, he was very careful. And get this is my favorite part. He frequently reminded himself to keep breathing. And that's a good segue into our message today. We're talking on a series called Feeling Our Way. Likened to reminiscent of entering a dark room. If you go into a dark room and you don't wait long enough for your eyes to adjust, you can tend to bump into things or hit your knee or stub your toe. And I liken that to navigating emotions and feelings, because how many know our emotions and feelings can lead us to places we really don't want to be? Isn't that true if we don't manage them properly? And so we're talking about managing feelings and emotions. And like I said, if we come into a dark room too suddenly, we can actually injure ourselves. Likewise, spiritual and emotional health, we can experience injury, and other people can experience injury if our emotions and feelings are not properly managed. So we want to talk about that again this morning, about feelings serving us instead of dominating us. Someone wrote a book years ago, Emotions, Can You Trust Them? Emotions can be not trustworthy because they can leap ahead of us and seize upon us, and if we're not keeping an eye on them, they can really mess up our lives and the lives of other people around us. And we know managing feelings is challenging all through life, isn't it? Up until, the day, we shake off this mortal coil, there's going to be a sense of, managing emotions, managing feelings. The teenage years are a classic example of the tremendous amount of emotions that can, accumulate in a person. Because you're making that transition, from childhood to adulthood. There's all kinds of stuff going on in your head. There's all kinds of hormonal changes in your body. And it can result in a sensory overload in teenagers. Remember your teenage years, right? What a mess you might have been. I was. And some teenagers today we see, sadly, the sensory overload is so much and the pressures they're experiencing are so much that they figure there's no point in living anymore. Such a sad and terrible thing. But it shows the necessity of helping them manage their emotions and feelings. And all of us need some help with that. Some adults never advance to processing their feelings properly. Some people go all their lives in it, and they tend to fly off the handle, or they're prone to, sadness or melancholy, and they never do get a handle on it. But we can do that. And there are certain professions that are even more susceptible to, for example, depression. Particularly any lawyers here or former lawyers? Oh, there we go. You'll know about this. And I'm sure the particular type of law you practice has a part to play. But I read lawyers battle with depression almost 4 times more than other professions. And substance abuse and even suicide is not uncommon in the legal profession. And again, it depends on, your particular type of law that you practice, I'm sure. But the nature of that profession is adversarial in many respects. You got to be fighting somebody all the time. How many know that's got to be hard? Isn't that hard? To be constantly waging war with other people. And I'm sure there are lawyers that manage to, deal with it better than others, but I know that's got to be a tough way to live, where your profession is essentially fighting people all the time. I'm thankful I'm not in that profession. I have known ministers that thought they were in that profession, and I never could understand why they kept doing it if they felt like they had to fight everybody all the time. I like to love everybody all the time. I'm a big love guy. Right, Bill? Not much of a fight guy. Now, there have been times I've been inclined to fight. If somebody started messing with my congregation, I tend to be a little, protective. I remember this one lady came in just very abusive, talking to some of my sweet people. I'm like, I had to hold myself back, that I didn't get, right with her. But generally, it's got to be hard, in something where you're constantly at war and at odds. But there are people that are not in the legal profession that feel that way too. You ever met them? They're constantly spoiling for a fight. What'd you say? And you didn't mean anything at all by it, but, they've got that mentality. So how do we manage our emotions and feelings in a way that's good for us, good for people around us? How to process our emotional energy and channel it out into our world. And I want to read to you from an unhealthy method of channeling feelings into the world from the book of Acts chapter 9. This is referring to Saul before he became Paul. At one time, Paul the Apostle, his name was Saul, and he was a high-ranking official in the Jewish religious hierarchy. And at this time, it said, meanwhile Saul, still breathing threats and murder against the disciples of the Lord, went to the high priest. And he asked him for letters to the synagogues at Damascus, so that if he found any who belonged to the way, men or women, he might arrest them and bring them bound to Jerusalem. We see Saul was so vehement in his opposition to the message of Jesus and to what he perceived to be its encroachment into the Jewish community, he asked for authority to arrest anybody that followed. At the time, it was called the Way. It wasn't called Christianity. They were called followers of the Way. And so he said, let me arrest these people. And it's interesting, it said he was breathing threats and murder against the disciples of the Lord. I call this bad breath. That's really bad breath. It won't be cured with a tic-tac, isn't that right? Because it is an expression of something spiritually and emotionally taking place in Paul's life, or Saul at the time, Saul's life. And I was fascinated. This word breathing, the original Greek, really gave me some great new insight into this. The word is emphaneo. And interestingly, we know breathing consists of inhaling and exhaling. Isn't that right? We know that. But in this particular word, the emphasis is strictly on the inhaling. And I found that intriguing. So what it was literally saying, Paul was inhaling threats and murder against the disciples of the Lord. He was constantly taking that in and obscuring his life essence by taking in that negative energy. He had bad breath, and primarily because he was breathing in things that were detrimental. How many know we breathe in things that are bad? How many know it's inevitably going to come out? Isn't that true? And that's what happened with him. He had bad breath because he was breathing in threats and murder, negative energy constantly. Breathing these things put us in bondage and bind those around us. As the old saying goes, hurt people hurt people. Isn't that true? And healed people heal people. And if we're constantly taking in things that are hurtful and negative, dark and destructive, it will inevitably be made manifest. For we know we are called, as Mr. Fillmore said, to be a Jerusalem, a habitation of peace, each of us individually and corporately. As he said, quoting him again, Jerusalem is the spiritual center in consciousness. In humanity, it is the abiding consciousness of spiritual peace. When we go deep into the silent recesses of our beings, we realize a stillness and sweetness beyond expression. And that's where we want to live, isn't it? Not breathing in negative stuff all the time, but breathing in that which makes us a place of stillness and sweetness. And so I want to talk to you this morning about adventures in breathing. Because breathing, it said Paul breathed threats and murder, negative things, and it came forth in his life. So let's look at how breathing is an adventure that we don't want to lose sight of. You may take it for granted. Don't do that. Because since moving to this higher elevation, I realize breathing is a tougher proposition than what I grew up understanding. I walk down the hall and think, why am I winded? But I realize I'm still adjusting to this ridiculous elevation here. But we need to appreciate the breathing in relation to managing feeling and emotion, for it is an essential component. And as for the last century, breathing is looked on strictly as an exchange of gases. But in the ancient world, they knew breathing was a spiritual as well as physical practice. And we sometimes really do need encouragement to breathe. I find I have to concentrate and breathe a little more, these days. I've mentioned to you that in practicing martial arts early on, I was, practicing these techniques. And my Instructor Dale said, Mickey, are you breathing? And I'm like, what do you mean? And he said, you're awful red in the face. You're holding your breath. I am? I didn't realize that. He said, you got to breathe through these movements, dude, or you're going to wear yourself out way faster than you have to. And he was right. I needed encouragement to breathe. Like Mr. Holden, remind yourself to keep breathing. Now, in Genesis chapter 2, the allegorical story of the beginning of humanity, the beginning of creation, says, then the Lord God formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being. We see here in this allegory of the creation of humanity, the formation of the physical body of Adam, symbolized by the dust of the ground, or the substance of earth, connected to a living being that is the whole person, or that divine essence we all share. Till that divine essence was breathed in, it was just a shell, wasn't it? But it became a whole person. We understand the necessity of physical air with its gaseous combination of mostly nitrogen and oxygen, that we cannot physically survive without it for more than 3 minutes. But when we look at the whole person, not only surviving but thriving, we see the breath of life in a whole new light. The Hebrew word used here for breath is nashama, which is derived from a root word, nasham. And this word means to blow away or destroy, such as a cyclone or tornado. Interesting, isn't it? That the very breath that gives life can also bring great destruction in its path. The word nashama means vital breath of inspiration. We see here the application of proper breathing can make or break us in our development as living beings. If we apply it wisely, we live fully. If not, we perish inside, though we may look very much alive on the outside. I mean, there are all kinds of people walking around who are just as dead and dry and dark inside as can be, even though they're alive physically. How many have ever scuba dived? Anybody? Oh, several of us. That's on my bucket list. I want to do that one of these years. And how many know what scuba stands for? Everybody remember? Very good. Let's say that together. Self-contained underwater breathing apparatus. I want to do that one of these days. I'm determined to do so. But Carolyn, not so big a fan. But me, I really would like to do that. But it's interesting, the concept of scuba in the water is a hostile environment for us to be in, isn't it? Because we don't breathe water, we breathe air. And so we get down there, and we cannot survive long trying to breathe in that environment. So what do? We bring our environment with us, isn't that right? With an oxygen tank, with a respirator, with all the gear necessary to enter that environment and be able to hang around there a while, look around, and be a part of it. And I see the same principle in regard to spiritual life. We have to be, in a sense, scuba dwellers in this world, isn't that right? Because the environment around us can get dark and heavy and mean and nasty. And how many know we got to bring our own environment with us to be able to thrive in that? Isn't that true? You ever walked into a room and there'd been strife and arguing, and you realize it didn't feel right to you? Of course, it's not. That's why it don't feel right. And so you come in with a different environment, and you bring in an environment of hope and kindness and cheerfulness, and suddenly the environment changes, doesn't it? But we've got to be scuba-minded people in that I'm not going to let this environment determine how I behave or how I live my life. I'm going to bring my environment into it, and it's going to be very different. I remember years ago when I had my church in western Kentucky, there was a period of time, it was a severe cold snap. The highs only got in the teens for several days. And at that time, I was a very avid jogger. I would be out jogging. I didn't care what the weather was. And I was jogging in this frigid weather and not thinking a thing about it. And one morning I woke up, and it was as if there was a knife blade sticking in my ribs. I think, what has happened to me? I knew I didn't have any accident or injury. So I went to the doctor, and he said, you got pleurisy. At the time, I was in my 40s. I thought only people in their 60s got pleurisy. Not in my 60s, I would say only people in their 90s got pleurisy. But at the time, I said, pleurisy, how could I have that? He said, well, tell me what you've been doing. I said, I jog every morning. I'm a model of physical fitness. He said, and therein is your problem. It has been so cold. You're breathing that frigid air, and you have dried out the pleura, or the lining to your lungs. And therein lies the problem you are experiencing. I got thinking, pleurisy. I never thought I'd have that. But it came from breathing in stuff that was not good for me. Even though it was air and oxygen, it was frigid air. And so I learned, how to beat that. I got a hold of something called the polar wrap. Wraps around you. Carolyn doesn't like me to wear it. She said it makes me look like Hannibal Lecter. But it's a heat exchanger for the human body. And I found I could run in that and never be bothered with pleurisy again. But what I drew from that, a real lesson from that, we can breathe that which dries out the inside of us, spiritually and emotionally. Like Paul, breathing in stuff that was bad for him. We can breathe in stuff that dries us out. How many know dry is a picture of no life? Dry is a picture of no vitality. And so we want to be, lubricated with love on the inside. Isn't that right? And so we need to breathe in that which is good for us so that it doesn't dry out our lives. As I say, cold is not in itself a force. Cold is simply the absence of heat. Just as evil is not a force. Evil is simply the absence of good. And so what I found I was experiencing, taking in the absence of something that was bad for me. I've noticed, you may have noticed this too, in my own self, when I'm overwhelmed by emotions like anger or anxiety, I tend to hold my breath some. You ever notice that? Notice the next time you're out of sorts. Say, am I breathing well? You'll find that you're probably not. This is a result of what Mr. Fillmore calls the Adam man, or the humanity controlled by the five senses, which internalizes what happens to us, holding it in, resulting in a spiritual and emotional drying out. Through proper breathing, we do not hold this negative energy, but we exhale it out. This is a major part of our famous unity expression, let go and let God. We let that stuff out. We don't let it set. We don't let it fester. We don't let it build up in us. Isn't that true? Some people want to unleash it, when it suddenly builds up, that they got to lay it on somebody else, generally somebody close to them. This is not the way. The way is to regularly exhale that stuff, regularly deal with that stuff through proper breathing, through proper meditation, through proper understanding of ourselves. And there are many great techniques of breathing out there. One that has been used for centuries is called box breathing. Anybody heard of box breathing? It's used by the Navy SEALs. It was derived from Hindu teaching and philosophy. And let's try it together. I'll count it because I can't do it and count at the same time. So you follow me. You breathe in for 4, you hold for 4, you exhale for 4, and then you hold it empty for 4. Let's do that. You do that and I'll help you. All right, breathe in for 4. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004. Hold for 4. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004. Exhale. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004. Hold empty. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004. Isn't that refreshing? I could tell you feel better. So, but that's just one. There are many techniques. Yoga practitioners do something called the breath of fire, which is very intense. There's all kinds of ways to do it. But mainly, like Mr. Holden, remind yourself, keep breathing. Isn't that right? Breathing properly is a key means of managing our feelings and our emotional energy, and will energize and keep us vital all through the lives that we have been blessed with. Sarah, if you would, let's have our affirmation in closing. If you would be so kind as to stand and repeat after me. Repeat after me if you would be so kind. I am a living being. I inhale the refreshing breath of spirit. I exhale negative energy and emotion. I breathe life and blessing into my world. That's sweet. You can have your seats. Thank you so much for your kind attention.
In the silence, that's where I hear so clear. In the silence, that's when I feel so near. In the silence, that's when I see your face. In the silence, that's when I know your grace. On the face of every stranger I happen to meet, in the loving of the one next to me. It's the love we must realize that makes life complete. It's the same love in you, it's the same love in me. In the silence, that's where our love will grow. In the silence, that's when I come to know. When I look upon a child and see the tears, I talk to them gently and I calm the fears. We look to our oneness to find our place. Our hearts will take flight and our spirits escape. In the silence, that's where I know my peace. In the silence, I know love cannot cease. When I feel my life is full, of sadness and grief, and I feel like the universe might be a thief. I look to the others to help catch my breath. I can find myself as I lay down to rest. In the silence, that's where I find my sight. In the silence, now I can see the light. In the silence, that's when I hear so clear. In the silence, that's when I feel so near. In the silence, that's when I see your face. In the silence, that's when I know your grace. In the silence, in the silence, in